Carmel Sepuloni.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, and can I start by congratulating you on your new position. Having worked with you on the Justice Select Committee, I know that you will be fair, and I also congratulate the Right Honourable David Carter on his appointment, and Lindsay Tish and Trevor Mallard on their appointments to Assistant Speaker. Mr Speaker, I have, like Stuart, got some dust to blow off these papers, having taken a 3-year sabbatical. But on reflection, actually, some of the best MPs that we have had a 3-year sabbatical. So I hope that myself, Stuart Nash and Calvin Davis will go on to serve as efficient and effective and productive careers as people like Trevor Mallard, Phil Goff and Annette King. We are back. We have all been productive over the last 3 years. So productive, actually, that I went on to have a baby while I was gone, but Stuart even more productive because he had 2 while he was away. Mr Speaker, I listened closely this morning to the speech from the throne, and the speech ticked all the boxes and told us many of the things New Zealand wanted to hear. But the reality is that the rhetoric does not match the reality. I was fortunate at this election to be elected by the people of Kelston, the new electorate of Kelston, as their MP. And Mr Speaker, over the past 3 years, I've spent much time trying to be involved in the local community to find out what's going on, to get involved at every level, representing on the Board of Trustees for my son's high school, on the Thrive Teen Parent Board of Trustees, the Thrive Teen Parent Support Trust Board of Trustees. Mr Speaker, I have seen firsthand that actually, despite what the national government says, a lot of people are actually struggling out there, Mr Speaker. Now, I'm speaking here tonight on behalf of the 25% that did vote for us, the 25% that do know that this national government has not served the majority of New Zealand well. Mr Speaker, the contradictions that we saw throughout the speech that was provided this morning were many, and I want to talk about some of those contradictions, Mr Speaker. The first contradiction I want to point out is the contradiction around one of the points that was raised by the Prime Minister. We had, in response to the government delivering high-quality public services focused on getting results, so the government was saying that they want to focus on getting results, seeking new and better ways to deliver public services and contain and reduce costs. They talked about continuing to deliver high-quality public services, Mr Speaker, but actually, you know, over the last 3 years, in fact over the last 6 years, we've seen anything but high-quality public services. Let me just point out Novapay, which I know my colleague Chris Hipkins has done a lot of work on. I think that would be considered anything but a high-quality public service. We have seen ACC in the many incidences of leaking its own documents under Minister Judith Collins' watch, e.g. 2012 involving Bronwyn Puller, who was sent nearly 7,000 files. That doesn't sound to me like high-quality public service. We've seen privacy breaches at IRD. In 2012, there were 32 separate privacy breaches at IRD. That has shot up to 151 incidences in 2013. Again, anything but high-quality public service from this national government. And in 2012, when blogger Keith Ing walked up to a kiosk at a work and income site, he was able to access thousands of confidential files. So if John Key, when talking about continuing to deliver high-quality public services, is talking about examples like that, then I think as a country we should be very concerned. Mr Speaker, we heard the government talking about their commitment to tertiary education. We heard the government saying that they want to continue providing high-quality tertiary education. But, Mr Speaker, when we think about the tertiary education system that we have at the moment, then again we have to be concerned. Just recently we heard Sian Riggs on behalf of the Tertiary Education Union talking about the job cuts at MIT, one of our polytechnics. So at a time when people are being pushed off benefits into work and study, at a time when people need to upskill to get good paying jobs in the workforce, and the place that they can go to do that is their local polytech, we see proposed redundancies because those polytechnics are under the crunch by that national government. What we saw today, or I think it was a media release that came out today, was that MIT staff and the faculties of engineering, the very area that that government said that they would be investing in, and trades and education and social sciences, found out this week that they face a massive restructuring. MIT has proposed 68 full-time equivalent job losses in 2 faculties. While the Polytechnic is also proposing 18 proposed new positions, and union organisers are working to ensure existing staff can redeploy into those new positions, the impact on staff and students will still be devastating. Tertiary Education Union National Secretary Sian Reid says those impacts include having the staff in early childhood education, English and foundation studies, as well as losses in sport, social services, manufacturing, automotive, construction, engineering, and in administrative positions across both faculties. So early childhood education, another area that that government purports to be investing in, is going to see cuts. Engineering, an area that that government purports to be investing in, is going to be cut. And a number of other areas that we would deem important moving forward as a country are seeing cuts at one of our major polytechnics in this country. Mr. Speaker, we heard today that the government is committed to ensuring that we have quality housing in this country. We heard today that this government is committed to ensuring that everyone has access to quality housing in this country. And yet all of us, I think, as Member of Parliaments, have recently been contacted by our local WINS officers to let us know that there are some major changes coming up with regards to social housing. Mr. Speaker, I got a phone call from Work and Income New Zealand telling me that they'd briefed me on that phone conversation. And I said, actually, this is not the time to do it. And I said, I want to meet face to face, and I want to meet with our social services, and I want to know what real impact this is going to have on our community. Mr. Speaker, when they say that they will be investing in quality housing and making sure that everyone has access to it, we find it a little bit difficult to believe when we see then that they are planning on selling off a significant chunk of New Zealand's state housing, and this is something that I don't recall them actually campaigning on, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even now, having only been elected, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, whatever it was, the number one thing already we are getting phone calls for is housing in the Kelston electorate. And I don't think that's too dissimilar from the rest of the country. Already we have people ringing us distraught because they do not know where they will be living. Mr. Speaker, the other day I had someone, this is a good example, ringing me to say they're living with the mother-in-law in a state house that's only 2 bedrooms. They are a couple with 2 children. They were given 2 weeks to go and find another place. He's on ACC, she's working part-time. How on earth could they get a bond together and find a place in 2 weeks? But actually, those government departments are only reflecting the lack of social conscience that this government has, Mr. Speaker. They are only following the direction that this government has set. Mr. Speaker, this government, from the time that it was elected in 2008, always had every intention of privatising our state housing. And that is exactly where we are heading now, Mr. Speaker. It's not about devolving the social housing to our community. It is about devolving responsibility, because that government doesn't want to be responsible for all the poor and vulnerable people that actually do need support from the state. And so the national government, Mr. Speaker, can tell us as many times as they want that individuals can make better choices for themselves. They can tell us as many times as they want that it's up to the community to decide how they're housed or where they're housed. But at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, what we know is that that government does not want to take responsibility for looking after some of our most vulnerable people. Mr. Speaker, the rhetoric in the speech from the throne was impressive this morning. But as I said at the beginning of the speech, what we know as MPs on the ground, and I know that many of the people sitting across there who are electorate MPs in particular know that this is the reality as well, that that rhetoric does not match the reality, Mr. Speaker. It does not match the reality of many New Zealanders. It does not match the reality of the New Zealanders that we represent. And Mr. Speaker, over the next 3 years, our job here in opposition will be to hold them to account to ensure that more than 25% of New Zealanders know at the 2017 election that this government is not there serving their best interests. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good speech.
The Honourable Member David Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it gives me great privilege to congratulate you as a fellow class member of the class of 2005 on your recent